Check out carmarshal.com. The link is in the description. They help support us.
Federal court quietly rules assault rifles not protected by Second Amendment. The Fourth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals has ruled that the Second Amendment does not provide protection for what it deemed assault weapons, nor does it protect any magazine larger than 10 rounds. By Matt Agorist, February 27, 2018. Annapolis, MD. While Americans watched the 2018 Olympics and mainstream media put on scripted town hall meetings to demonize law-abiding citizens who own guns, the Fourth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in Richmond, Virginia handed down a blow to the Second Amendment. In a 10-4 ruling, the federal court ruled that the state of Maryland's ban on 45 different assault weapons and its 10-round limit for magazines was not a violation of the citizens' constitutional rights. The ruling was not without harsh dissent, however. Put simply, we have no power to extend Second Amendment protections to weapons of war, Judge Robert King wrote for the court, adding that the Supreme Court's decision in District of Columbia v. Heller explicitly excluded such coverage, according to NBC. It's unthinkable that these weapons of war, weapons that caused the carnage in Newtown and in other communities across the country, would be protected by the Second Amendment, Maryland Attorney General Brian Frosh, who spearheaded the movement, said. It's a very strong opinion, and it has national significance, both because it's en banc and for the strength of its decision, Frosh said. As NBC reports, however, Judge William Traxler issued a dissent. By concluding the Second Amendment doesn't even apply, Traxler wrote, the majority has gone to greater lengths than any other court to eviscerate the constitutionally guaranteed right to keep and bear arms. He also wrote that the court did not apply a strict enough review on the constitutionality of the law. For a law-abiding citizen who, for whatever reason, chooses to protect his home with a semi-automatic rifle instead of a semi-automatic handgun, Maryland's law clearly imposes a significant burden on the exercise of the right to arm oneself at home, and it should at least be subject to strict scrutiny review before it is allowed to stand, Traxler wrote. Elizabeth Banach, Executive Director of Marylanders to Prevent Gun Violence, says this ruling is overwhelming proof that reasonable measures to prevent gun violence are constitutional, adding that it doesn't go far enough. Maryland's law needs to become a national model of evidence-based policies that will reduce gun violence, Banach wrote in a statement. Sadly, the court entirely ignored the Supreme Court case of District of Columbia v. Heller, which determined that the Second Amendment protects weapons that are in common use at the time for lawful purposes like self-defense. As TFTP has previously reported, every time a lunatic, who is usually on some form mind-altering pharmaceutical, goes on a shooting rampage, the do-gooders in Washington, with the aid of their citizen flocks, take to the TV and the internet to call for disarming the American people. The citizens who call for themselves and their neighbors to be disarmed, likely think no deeper than the shallow speeches given by the political blowhards, designed to appeal to emotion only. They do not think of what happens during and after the government attempts to remove guns from society. They also completely ignore the fact that criminals do not obey laws and making guns illegal would have zero effect on criminals possessing guns. In the perfect statist world in which only the government has guns, we're told that crime rates would plummet, people wouldn't be murdered, gun violence would be brought to its knees, and a disarmed heaven on earth would ensue. But how effective would disarming the citizens actually be at preventing gun violence, while at the same time keeping guns in the hands of government? One simple way to determine the outcome would be to compare mass shootings in America with those killed by police. It is entirely too easy to compare all senseless murders carried out by the state to those carried out by citizens, so we will zoom in with a microscope. However, just as a point of reference, in the 20th century alone, governments were responsible for 260 million deaths worldwide. That number is greater than all deaths from illicit drug use, STDs, homicides, and traffic accidents combined. Now, onto the micro-comparison. According to a comprehensive database of all American mass shootings that have taken place since 1982, constructed by Mother Jones, there have been exactly 816 deaths attributed to mass shootings that have taken place on American soil. As Mother Jones notes, in their database, they exclude shootings stemming from more conventional crimes such as armed robbery or gang violence. Other news outlets and researchers have published larger tallies that include a wide range of gun crimes in which 4 or more people have been either wounded or killed. While those larger data sets of multiple victim shootings may be useful for studying the broader problem of gun violence, our investigation provides an in-depth look at the distinct phenomenon of mass shootings from the firearms use to mental health factors and the growing copycat problem. If we were to compare the 816 citizens killed in mass shootings to citizens killed by police in the same time frame, the comparison would be off the charts. So, for the sake of simplicity, we will compare all of the mass shooting deaths in the last 35 years, to the number of citizens killed by police since the beginning of last year. Already, in 2018, American police have killed 188 people. When we add that to 1,189 people killed by police in 2017, that number is 1,377. This number is set to increase by 1, on average, every 8 hours. When comparing the total number of mass shootings over the last 35 years to just the last 14 months of police killings, the ratio is 1.7 to 1, citizens killed by cops versus citizens killed in mass shootings. That is a massive difference. The comparison is staggering and should shock the conscience. But to truly get a perspective, let's go back 3 years and compare all of the citizens killed by cops since the beginning of 2015 to the number of mass shooting deaths. Since 2015, cops in America have killed 3,733 citizens. In a time period that is less than 1/10 the amount of time it took mass shooters to kill 816 people, cops have killed nearly 5 times as many citizens. The Second Amendment wasn't put into place so Ted Nugent could piss off liberals in a horrible reality TV series, or so the Duck Dynasty folks could shoot their dinner. It was put there because the ability of a people to defend themselves is the only thing standing in between freedom and slavery. Of course, a society without guns sounds fantastic and, in a perfect utopian world, it would be nice not to need a gun. However, we do not live in utopia. It's not about clinging to the Second Amendment or being addicted to firepower. It's about protecting you and your family and no one having the right to hinder that protection. As John Locke stated, self-defense is the first law of nature. Each person owns his or her own life and no other person has a right to take that life. Those who would attempt to stop you from defending yourself are attacking the very right from which all other rights are derived: protection of one's own life.
Last night at the big CNN town hall event, there was a lot of raw emotion. One of the students who wanted to attend but didn't attend because he was upset that to him it seemed like his question was being scripted for him. He spoke out tonight on Tucker's show. I want to play it for you and get your reaction. Let's watch.
They had taken what I had wrote and what I had briefed on and talked about, and they actually wrote the question for me.
But not with your words. I mean, they put their own words into your question, even after they'd asked you to send questions in. But that seems dishonest.
It definitely did, and that's kind of why I didn't go last night. Originally, I had thought that it was going to be more of my own question and my own say, and then it turned out to be more of just a script. And she had actually said that over the phone that I needed to stick to the script.
Ariana, what's your reaction to that? That the CNN denies this, by the way, but they have a history of planting questions that Michelle Malkin and others have written about before in other events. But Colton Hobb, who gave that interview, was emphatic about his point.
Yes. Well, I think the whole point of the town hall meeting was to hear the kids and hear what we had to say. And for that to happen is inexcusable. Our voices need to be heard, and he should have been able to ask any question he had to ask. But instead, we have these networks that don't want us to give our real opinions, and they want us to further their own agendas.
Andrew, it seemed like
Laura,
most of the students, Andrew, had the same opinion on what to do, namely to ban certain weapons, to trash the NRA, to be really disrespectful to Marco Rubio, and nasty things being said to Dana Lash, who was there. But they all seemed to be pretty much in agreement, as far as I could tell. There was no diversity of opinion among either the students or anyone else that I saw, even in the audience.
And Laura, that's not surprising at all. I actually spoke to a CNN producer on Thursday, the day after the shooting, and the producer insinuated to me they were looking for people who were willing to espouse a certain narrative, which was taking the tragedy and turning it into a policy debate, and I read that as being a gun control debate. And unfortunately, I think a lot of the people talking about gun control don't understand what they're talking about, because I'm a Republican, I'm a gun owner, I'm a responsible gun owner. And when we talk about gun control, it's not about taking guns away from people like me. It's about keeping them out of the hands of the people who should not have them, who are irresponsible, who are a threat to society. And when, last night when Ted Deutsch kept repeating his mantra that he wants to eliminate any gun that can fire 150 rounds in 6 minutes, that's almost every gun that's out there. So this supposed assault weapons ban, these other items they're talking about, aren't going to accomplish anything, along those lines. So I agree we need to make some headway. We need to raise the age to buy a rifle. I agree with the president on that. But beyond that, a lot of these folks who are yelling gun control, really don't have a great grasp on what they're talking about.
So, Andrew, let me just get this straight. So the CNN producer who called you right after the shooting said specifically what about the way they wanted to produce interviews and so forth?
Well, as I recall, the producer said, we're looking for people who want to talk about the policy implications about what happened in terms of, she didn't mention guns, but, in terms of the policy implications for preventing future mass shootings. And if you know folks who want to talk about that, we'd like to speak to those people.
Very interesting. Ariana and
Yes.
Mr. Klein, thank you so much for joining us. Our prayers continue to be with the people of Parkland, and you guys are incredible. You were amazing yesterday. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to New Unrealist. There you saw Andrew Klein, the father of Parkland student Ariana Klein. Andrew Klein, as you heard, was called by a CNN producer who was very interested in getting names and being put into contact with, how did he put it? We're looking for people who want to talk about the policy implications, about preventing future blah, blah, blah. The very anodyne language that you heard is a roundabout way of saying people in favor of restrictionist policies. If you're not in favor of them, then you really don't have any burning desire to speak out, as you're not interested in making policy changes in that area. So, it's clear who CNN wants to talk to. It's amazing to me how quickly the same people who, not so long ago, they used to bleat the mantra about not politicizing tragedies too soon, and, forget it now. It used to be, it's too soon in a matter of days. Now it's just a matter of hours on the day of, whenever one of these things happens, when they go full bore with it. Why is it all week we get wall-to-wall, seemingly 24/7 coverage of the likes of David Hogg, Cameron Kasky, and Emma Gonzalez and their drama club friends? They're talking to politicians, Debbie Wasserman Schultz. They're featured at events by CNN. Yet people like Colton Hobb and Ariana Klein, I'm not seeing them or their friends get the kind of rock star treatment that the restrictionists are receiving. I wonder why that is. Now remember, Colton Hobb says he was specifically told by a CNN producer he needed to stick to the, quote, the script.
Originally, I had thought that it was going to be more of my own question and my own say, and then it turned out to be more of just a script. And she had actually said that over the phone, that I needed to stick to the script.
So they wrote his question and admonished this guy who was a hero that day, shielding his fellow students with Kevlar sheets. He gets the B-list treatment. He's not put on a stage with Marco Rubio and turned into the co-host of the event when Jake Tapper just shuts down and goes away. Turned the show over to him. How about Ariana Klein? Is her story any less compelling than Emma Gonzalez's because just because before her fallen classmates were even cold, let alone laid to rest in the ground, because she didn't form an activist group and call all the news networks feverishly looking to push a narrative and feed the 24-hour news cycle to cover her? I mean, if this is how it's going to be, then I suggest Colton and Ariana, they get together with their friends and start their own group, because unless they do and start talking on the MSNBCs and CNNs of the world, they're only going to be preaching to the choir on outlets like Fox News, which is fine. I mean, Fox reaches a large audience, but they shouldn't make the mistake of only speaking to news outlets that are receptive to hearing what they have to say. If David Hogg and Cameron Kasky have taught them anything, they should take away that if they don't speak up and speak for themselves, you know, in that vacuum, then this drama club clique, it's going to speak for them. And places like CNN are all too eager to lap up everything that conforms to their agenda and, dare I say, the script. That's all for this Neon Realist. Like the video, comment, subscribe to the channel if you want to help it out. Thanks for watching.
Well, I think the whole point of the town hall meeting was to hear the kids and hear what we had to say. And for that to happen is inexcusable. Our voices need to be heard, and he should have been able to ask any question he had to ask. But instead, we have these networks that don't want us to give our real opinions, and they want us to further their own agendas.
County, this is Charlotte County Cop Watch, and I wanted to explain what fair use is. You can use pieces of news articles if you're doing it for news reporting, you have commentary, and you're doing it for education purposes. So that's what fair use is, as you can see right here. Another reason why I wanted to make this video is to let you know I have just joined with Patreon. A nice thing with Patreon, I make no money on YouTube. They took the money away years ago, and so this is another way to give, and it's a nice thing too, because you can give monthly. You can give $1, $5, $10, whatever. I do 4 to 5 hours a day on trying to wake the sheeple up on how corrupt it is and different ways that you can fight the corruption. So Patreon is a way that you can do it, and then of course the old way is still there. Donate to Sheriff County Cop Watch with PayPal or credit card. So keep that in mind. 4 to 5 hours a day. I make no money, but the corruption happened to me and I'm sick of it, so I'm trying to wake people up. But my wife would love it if if we could get some help out there. There's 47,000 subscribers. Just think if each one of you subscribers just gave let's say actually yes, $1 a month. 47,000 subscribers gave $1 a month. That would be awesome. That's not going to happen. But anyways, that would be great if it did happen. But do the math in your head. Just think about it. Like I said, 4 to 5 hours a day. I get no money from YouTube. YouTube has gone nuts. You can't do anything anymore. They're taking the money away everywhere. So these are a couple different ways that you can still help out with all this time that I put in. And as you know, I'm in a special situation where, at least I can do it, 4 to 5 hours a day. We have a cleaning company during the day. That's what allows me to do this, and we're debt-free. So this is my hobby. I don't go fishing and all that other crap. I try to save the world. So help me out to make the wife happy, man. In fact, if you guys did give $1 a day, and there was 47,000 of you, and you did it, and each of you gave $1, and that was every month, oh my God, yes, I could quit. I could start suing them. Another idea too that we have is, if I got, some funds, we could actually contact everyone that has been ticketed and or arrested and put in jail and start sending them postcards to let them know we're here, and to see if everything went all right, and if it didn't, find out their story. So we could even do more investigations and more lawsuits. Lawsuits take money. So just think about that. 47,000 of you so far right now. $1 a day. $1 a month on Patreon, or $5 a month Patreon, 10, 20, whatever. Just do the math in your head. Help out. This is a lot of work every single day. Thanks.